Jeannie, where'd you get that picture? What is that? What is that from?
It's a bronze statue of, it's a classic piece of art. I'm not sure what it's called, but.
Wow, that is a perfect piece.
Yeah, it's Romulus and Remus.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a Greek.
Yeah.
Is this recording, Mom?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm trying to be less offensive with my titles. I figured this is less offensive. So, all right. So, in case you don't know what that, if you don't think there's a scripture reference for that, you're wrong. Here we go. 2 verses. Hebrews 5, 11 through 14. We have much to say about this, but it is hard to make it clear to you. So what he had been talking about a lot of things before this. Deep things about God, about Jesus, understanding Jesus. And he says, we have much to say about this, but it's hard to make it clear to you because you no longer try to understand. In fact, though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you the elementary truths of God's Word all over again. You need milk, not solid food. Anyone who lives on milk, being still an infant, is not acquainted with the teaching about righteousness. But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil. So the whole idea here is it takes work to understand things that are deep. And it requires us to engage our intellect, our mind, our reason. And it takes work, and we don't want to do that. And so we'd rather drink from the titty of the culture, right? We'd rather just be passive and not really engage. And then just a reference real quick again, because I've been in this theme of how do we love God. This whole idea of all of creation is a way of serving and loving God. Well, Jesus says, what's the greatest commandment? And this is his answer: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbors yourself. So this idea, when we engage our minds through dialogue and debate and discussion and reading and thinking, that is actually a way. And it doesn't have to just be, it is thinking on Scripture, that's great. But it's thinking about anything of depth, anything of meaning. It's having a discussion around some fiction book that you read, whatever the fiction. Who's reading a fiction book right now? Anybody reading a fiction book? All right. And is it interesting? And could you have a conversation with somebody about it at some level?
Sure.
Yeah. So the idea, I've always thought fiction is kind of a waste of time because it's not telling you what to do, what to learn, what to know, right? But what fiction does, because I'm learning this, you think at 50 I would have known this about fiction, but I didn't. Fiction does lots and lots of things. I mean, lots of things, all of which, again, are pleasing to God. But it engages the mind, right? It causes you to imagine. So you're being taken to a place or a time or a space. You're being encouraged to think through someone else's lens, right? Because you're not thinking this stuff up. Someone else is. The difference of Netflix, which I love Netflix and shows on there, but the problem with that form of, and there's nothing wrong with it, except if we consume it too much. The problem with Netflix is it doesn't require your imagination. They've done all the imagination for you. And it doesn't require really any thinking or reflection. And now, you can be done with the show and reflect on it afterwards. So there's some place for that, but fiction takes you to a space, a place, with characters, with ideas that you never would have thought of on your own. And so it expands your ability to know and understand and experience, which is pretty profound. But this whole idea of we love God with our minds, we forget that. Like our minds thinking about deep things. It's like, take Wright brothers. I'm drawing a blank on these guys. The Wright brothers. These guys were, if you know any of their history, they were like super smart guys. They had a bike company, and they were making some really good money on the bike company. They had a printing press, I think maybe was the first thing they did, and that mess. Does anybody know their history? But it's like, they were all these, like they were discovering like this, and they wanted to make money, but they were also really interested new inventions, and then they saw this thing called, whoever it was, they saw a guy, because they weren't the first guys to think about flight, obviously. They were the first guys to actually get flight and not, crash and kill themselves. But what were they doing? They were honoring God. They were worshiping God through what? The use of their minds, their intellect. And so when we solve problems, when we're having deep conversations, that's a way that we're like using what God has put in us to expand, to learn, to grow. And we can elevate the mind. Many super smart people are atheists, right? Because what happens is the mind is so incredible. Our ability to think and reason and kind of go down paths is so, God's made our minds absolutely incredible. But when we elevate the mind above God, then we get into trouble, right? Then our mind, our ability to think becomes our God, which is really bizarre. And if you follow people don't like this when you say it, but it's just facts are facts. When you follow the lives of atheists, especially those who are philosophers and who are atheists, meaning they're always thinking about life and the meaning of life, those that cut the line between man and God and say, man is it, God is irrelevant, their lives do not go well. I mean, they end poorly. And that's an understatement. Because they've cut off the source of the very thing that they have learned to idolize, which is their mind. So this whole section is saying we are supposed to use our minds. We're supposed to think deeply, but we have trouble. So the greatest influence, if you would have asked people what the greatest influence in their lives 200 years ago, one of two things would have been first: faith or family, in that order, or vice versa. Ask it 200 years ago, same answer. 150 years ago, same answer. 100 years ago, same answer. 50 years ago, same answer. This is Gallup stuff, Gallup survey. If you ask it today, don't look up there. If you ask it today, what's the number one influence in people's lives?
Your cell phone?
Social media.
Yep, social media. Faith and family are lucky to make it in the top 10. So what does that say as it relates to the mind, right? So if you think, and I'm not anti this, right, at all. It's a tool. It's powerful, actually, like everything else. It's kept within reason. But if this social media in particular is the greatest influence, how much depth do you think we are getting? How much are we thinking fully and completely? I was just with somebody 2 nights ago, and he's a world traveler, likes to go all over. He said it is so wild, and he's been traveling for many years. So he said 10 years ago when he'd go over to Europe, he said the differences, he would go over there and it was just so unique. And it was so, at every level. The music they listened to, the shoes they wore, the food they ate, the style, the conversation. Do you think it's the same now? He said it's like the whole world is like the same. Now he hasn't been to every place on the planet. I'm not saying the backwoods of wherever, but he said it's so weird because now
everyone can just order something,
and
everyone's got the same shirt. Everyone's got the same shoes.
Everyone's influenced. What's cool? What's in? What's hot? What's hip? What's everyone across the whole globe, because we're not, and that's just fashion, right? So the guys in wherever are wearing the same shirt. Cool. That's like maybe not that big of a deal. I mean, it is to some degree. But what about the way we think? What if that's true about that? What if we're all beginning to think in similar ways based upon what we're most influenced by, right? It's like, wow, that's scary. The glory of dialogue and discourse. The definition of discourse, right? Because we don't know what that word means, because we don't do it anymore. Discourse, the definition. Verbal interchange of ideas, especially conversation. Formal and orderly and usually extended expression of thought on a subject. Think about that. Like, when was the last time you had a extended, not like, hey, what do you think about this? Okay, see, man, like, 20-second conversation, like, extended. Like, for over a course of an hour or 2 or 3. I remember when I this is a while ago now, I went with Simon to Israel. I went into the restaurant, and I was, because he said, oh, go make sure we can go eat there. And so I went in, and they had no reservations. I'm like, can't even make, no, we're booked out for whatever it was. 2 nights, let's just say. And I can't remember how I figured this out, but I figured it out somehow, that the reason their reservations were all booked is because how long do you think a reservation is in Israel? Or in Europe, probably, for that matter.
3. Oh, they sit there for 3 or 4
3 hours. Literally 3. I mean, that's not for some people. That's everybody. Why? Because they sit and they enjoy dialogue.
Drink a couple drinks for 2 hours.
They're drinking and they're talking and they're talking about whatever they're talking about. The fiction book they're reading, or the insight they're having, or whatever. Right? I'm like 3 hours, dude. I gotta get on to whatever the next thing is. It's totally a different way of thinking, and honestly, that's the right way of being. I'm telling you. I was at the Stone. Is it called the Stone or the Stone Table? Anyways, it's that restaurant right there. It's Penny Opa's, Elias and Orion's restaurant, but it's over here on Henderson. Great little place. And Simon asked me to go there 2 weeks ago, and there was something so cool about it. It was late. It was 8 to 11, right? On a Wednesday night. I never go out on a Wednesday night, 8 to 11. It was on the side patio, and there was some women there, but it was mostly men, and mostly from different, ethnic backgrounds, right? But it was just fascinating, because I wasn't able to listen to all their conversations, but they're not there for 30 minutes. Okay, see them, they were there. I was there for 3 hours, and I left before, other people were leaving, right? They're just there, talking, dialoguing, engaging. John Adams, it's a show on HBO. I mean, it was a show. It's still a show on HBO. It's 20 years old probably now. Super good. I highly, highly recommend it. But I was so fascinated by it because John Adams, one of the presidents, right? Second president. But the whole show is about the founding of America. But I was just captivated because why? Or for me, why? Because I was like, we don't do that anymore. But they were just like sitting. Wait a second, that's wrong. You're stupid, But really, not like you're stupid. And they walk out of the room like, that's wrong, and here's why. And they were intense and they were passionate, but they were wrestling with ideas and concepts about life, and it's like,
Nobody really knew the right way.
they didn't.
Because who had the best idea?
Yes, and they wrestled for it, right? And they thought about it. Discourse, dialogue. Man, we gotta bring that back. Writer of Hebrews is saying, you don't want to work for it, so you just want to milk. Milk's for infants, right? We all tend to want milk. Like, hard day, I want to go home, dude. Click. That's what we've been bred. We've been trained to do that, right? Tonight there's a presidential debate. You guys know that?
Oh, is that tonight?
Yes.
It's tonight.
9 o'clock.
I didn't actually know it was. My mom told me, and I didn't. But what I've been told is it could be one of the most televised or watched. Have you guys heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, guys, I'm not like anti-Trump or anti-Biden. I'm not coming from that angle. I'm just saying, it's a clown show, guys.
Absolutely.
It's a clown show, but it's going to be the most televised or the most watched event.
Because everyone knows it's going to be a clown show.
But here's the thing. Could you, what if we had, and I wish I should have thought about this more, smart, deep guy 1 talking and debating with smart, deep guy 2. Crickets. Crickets, right? Because what do we want? We want to watch the freaking clown show. That's what we want.
That's what the whole world wants.
Yes, because another reason why, and I'm absolutely 100% guilty of it. You know what this is?
Social media.
Mind control.
You know what this is? Let's see what this says.
The shorts?
Yeah. Oh, this is my other channel, but let's just see what this is. Oh, the slap further up the roll. I don't even know what it is, but he's gonna get slapped apparently, right? Anyways, that's called a short, right? If you know what that is. I have a limit on my phone that'll shut off in 15 minutes. Why? Because I know that I'll just keep just because it's just so interesting, right? But they're shorts. And I think the longest a short can be maybe it's 90 seconds, I think, maybe something like that. That's what we're used to. We're used to clown shows. I mean, what is all this? Like, there's some interesting stuff, but it's all just, there's no depth.
You know, it might not even be the truth.
Right, yeah, right?
But people see it and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's all good. That's all. Did you read it? Did you look at it?
Yeah.
Did you research it? No.
And I'm not anti all that. Like, there's one, I can't think of his name, but he's a prankster. I love this guy. He'll go into the hood, and he'll go up to a guy. He's Latino,
I've
and
seen that.
you seen that?
Yeah.
And he'll come up and like to some guy who's a gangbanger. You can tell he's like, "You want to get chopped up, my boy?"
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "What do you say?" He's like, "You want to get chopped up?"
Not bad.
And the guy, and then he'll take out chopsticks or something, like a chopstick. And some guys will pull guns. He's like, no, I'm just talking chopsticks, It's hilarious, right? But it's okay. That stuff's okay if it's a diet. The plate is full of all kinds of other nutrients, right? If your plate is full of that cotton candy's fine if you eat a little bit of it. But if you're just digesting all of that, you don't have depth, man. So, clown show tonight. What does that say? John Adams already made a comment on Elon Musk. Love him, hate him. Hopefully you love him because the dude's amazing. But I literally, with my family, we were on vacation and we were watching an hour-and-a-half interview with him and a guy from New York Times. It was whatever. And I made my younger kids watch it, but my older kids, including Tinsley, my 11-year-old no, Tinsley 12, yes, and then my 18-year-old 20 or whatever they are, and then my mom and my wife. We were captivated. Why? Because Elon is not just like, oh dude, that guy's smart. He's thought through things. He's not just smart, he is, like, he's a genius, but you could be a genius and not have thought through things, and you just kind of give dumb answers. His answers, if you've ever listened to him really be interviewed, sometimes he takes 3 to 5 seconds of silence. So ask a question, his eyes dart back and forth. It's like he's a cyborg or something. And then he gives this answer. It's profound. The reason I love it is because his answers are deep. Or if you ever listen to Jordan Peterson, people think, well, Jordan Peterson's just smart. You gotta listen to Jordan Peterson's background. Before anybody knew who he was writing, and I forget the stat. It might be as much as 6 hours a day, but it's definitely 4 to 6 hours a day. For 10 hours, he was writing a book called Maps of Meaning, which none of you have heard of, right? Because it was his first book, and I've read it, and I could hardly understand any of it. Thick. Maps of Meaning, he spent 4, 6, 7 hours, or whatever it was, a day for 10 years, thinking, reflecting, reading, writing, thinking, reflecting, dialoguing, writing, rewriting, thinking, right? We do it for an hour and we think, man, I'm deep in this subject. Now, fast forward, and Jordan Peterson, people are like listening to him. He's like, wow, this guy's so smart. He is smart because he's thought deeply. And thinking deeply is what we're all supposed to do. We don't need to be Jordan Petersons. I'm never going to be a Jordan Peterson, but we're in our little worlds, we're supposed to have a measure of deep thinking. Maturity takes effort. So this whole idea in the verse, it says, by constant use. So those who are mature, it's by constant use. I'm not referencing the scripture because I don't want to pull back to that verse, but it says, solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish between good and evil. So the whole, if you guys have heard the Peter Pan life, right? Peter Pan life is, you kind of have no responsibilities. Like, it's fun. You just kind of do whatever and chill, and you don't really have commitments, and you can just go where you want to go, you can travel where you want to travel, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's like, that life would be sweet. That life sucks. That life's cool for like a weekend, but for life, like, I've got a buddy from a long time ago, who's my age, and he's lived Peter Pan life. And on the outside, people, from an Instagram standpoint, would say, that dude's balling it. He's super handsome, he's fit, he's built, he's got babes, he's got some cool businesses. Seriously, I mean, so Instagram, you're like, that dude's got it. I feel so sad for him. He's got nothing. He literally has nothing. He's dating whoever the girl is now. He's got, no kids, no family, none of that stuff that is kind of, we would think is can kind of be annoying. Like you can't just get up and travel if you got kids. You can't just sleep around with whoever you want if you have a wife. Like all that kind of stuff. It's all BS. It's Peter Pan. Peter Pan syndrome. It's not good. Maturity takes effort, is my point. I had a conversation last night, so Jonathan has a group, small group at my house with young adults. There's 15 to 20, sometimes more, that show up every Wednesday night. It's pretty cool. Ruthie will cook a little meal, and we have a bunch of people sitting around the table, and they're eating, and then we leave, and they have their group. Well, after the group, we came down, because we take the little ones upstairs, and we're up there while they're doing their thing downstairs. And it's super cool, right? Think about where you were at 20. You know, how dumb you were, and at least how dumb I was. And well, these guys are all together, and they're seeking God, and they're sharing their hearts. It's so cool. But I came downstairs, and one of the guys said, "Hey, Mr. Weir, you know, Johnny said it might be a good idea for you to talk to you about something." I said, "Sure." So let's go in the office. So we pull aside. And long story short, he has a girlfriend that he wants to break up with, and he said, "But every time I go to break up with her, I literally can't. I can't say it. I can't say it." He's like, "What do you think that is?" And I said, "That's called being a boy. And being a man is hard. Like, maturity takes effort. And you need to be kind," because he's a kind guy, he's real soft-hearted. Like, you can be kind, but you're being a boy if you continue to date her knowing you're going to break up with her. Like, you got to be a man. And you got to say the hard things in a kind way. And that's the difference between boys who grow up to be boys and boys who grow up to be men. Is you learn how to have hard conversations. But it's about maturity, right? It takes effort. It takes, you could tell it was resonating with him. It was like, whoa. And I told him, you guys seen, random reference, but Saving Private Ryan? You know that just, it's the sickest, and I mean sickest in a bad way, sickest scene in the movie when the guy stands behind the door. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like, dude, who's standing behind the door, and it's a battle scene, right? And he can't get out from behind the door because he's a little boy, right? He's a big dude, he's a big guy. He's a little boy who never learned how to be a man, right? Maturity takes effort. We're passive and reactive, you know, we don't engage, and this is it. Last point, and we're wrapping. I want to encourage you to carve out places. Now remember, this is all fits in the category of honoring God, loving God, worshiping God, but I want to encourage you to carve out places. For what? For maturity, for developing your mind. Carve out some spaces. What do those look like? First, just sit and think. And I would challenge you 10 minutes a day. Statistically speaking, none of us in this room do that. 10 minutes a day, you're doing nothing. You're sitting there, it's quiet, nobody's around. You're not engaged in some activity, or just sit with your own thoughts in God. Obviously, God's there with you. And just be willing to sit and think and reflect. And just see what comes up. And do that as a lifestyle. Not like, well, I'm going to do that tonight. Like, do it as a lifestyle. Why? Because it'll help you to mature and become the kind of man that you want to be. But we don't do that. We stay busy, literally. Busy, mowing the lawn, taking care of work, going back, riding to here, going to eat, watch the show, go to bed. Next day, do it again, right? Get up, make the coffee, go back, take a shower, every day in and day out. And what are we doing? Exercising our minds and our intellect and our thinking. And so we just stay kind of anemic and weak and not strong. Dinner, drinks, and dialogue. I mean, drinks is obviously whatever, but I already gave you the Stone reference, the restaurant. Like, I'm going to start, me and my boys, we talked about this earlier this week, and it was, I can't remember if it was Jonathan or Caleb's idea. I'm like, we're doing it. So every 2 weeks, I'm taking out my 2 sons, and we might invite some other men, but it's just going to be, we're going to sit there. We're going to have a meal, out of the house, all the kids running around, just the 3 of us, and we're just going to be men. And talk about whatever. I mean, it might be deep stuff, we might laugh, we might cry, we might whatever, but taking intentional time to just do what I talked about in Israel. What do? They sit there for 3 hours, right? Go to the restaurant, the minimum reservation, 3 hours. We're going to do that. My I'm challenging you guys to do the same. Intentional conversations with your wife. You know? Intentional. Like where you sit there and it's not a 20-minute talk. It's like, hey, we're just gonna, and I'm gonna tell you, if you don't do it very often, it'll be very uncomfortable. But it's a good uncomfortable. And you just say, we're just gonna talk. I mean, how much to talk about? Like the number of people that I talk to who don't go on many dates with their wives is the vast majority. I'm like, I can't think of a person off the top of my head, except possibly one, who does a regular date with their wife.
Every Wednesday.
You do?
Yep.
There you go.
And then at least 20 minutes a day. We sit there and we try to, at least your day,
Yes.
something's bugging her.
Well,
she
that's
just kinda-
powerful, and that's very unique.
And it just started like 8 months ago.
That's great. And has it
Oh,
been?
it's crazy. Yeah, it's a lot
Right.
different.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful story. So you're more connected. Wow. See, I mean, it's having those conversations, and sometimes it won't be around anything. Like Ruthie and I have had times when we've just honestly been at the meal and we've struggled to have something to talk about. I mean, just because we've talked about all that we feel like. And so I'm a cheese ball, so you know what I did? I got an app, and the app is
Cheese ball ideas.
Cheese Ball Ideas.
We got a book.
Like Josh
Scrap
did.
something off and do it.
Okay, yeah. Shoot, I haven't used it in a while because we've just been we haven't needed it. But it's called, it's just questions. It's just questions that seem dumb. Like, what's the, thing you're most embarrassed about from your childhood or something? Or what are you looking forward to in the next 10 years? Or whatever. It queues up a bunch of questions. And you just skip through them, so I'm like, that's dumb. And then it creates a point of connection. And why did I need it? Did we need it? Because sometimes I'm just shallow, right? I just don't know what to talk about, So, but taking the time to have intentional conversations with your wife. And then reading. Read anything. It's kindling for the soul. It's kindling for the mind. When we're only passive, we're only passively, taking information in, the news, Netflix or whatever it is, social media, that's passive. That does not kindle the soul. That doesn't stir up the mind. Doesn't. It might provoke you, it might cause a reaction, but it doesn't cause there to be kindling. When I mean kindling, this is a fire, and you throw kindling in to stoke the fire. You're thinking deeply. Reading, anything helps with that. So read, have intentional conversations, set aside time where you're really taking your time. 2-3 hours of just sitting down. We're going to talk. We're going to eat a nice meal. We're going to have drinks if you drink. And then yourself, sit and think. That's it. Questions?